Trajan had grown the empire so large that it was hard to protect. Much of the land he had conquered was from the Persians. The Romans were having to regularly fend off these attackers from the east. The vastness of the empire made communication very difficult. News of Persian attackers could take weeks and sometimes months to reach all parts of the empire. Once the news was heard, it could take months to deploy reinforcements to aid in the attacks. While those soldiers were marching across the empire to provide help, Germanic tribes, realizing the armies were gone, would attack the unguarded territories. The Germanic tribes were growing in numbers and were becoming better soldiers from fighting against the Romans. After the period of the 5 good emperors, which marks the end of the Pax Romana, Marcus Aurelius' son Commodus would become emperor. Commodus is said to have turned Rome from a kingdom of gold to one of iron and rust. He was a tyrant and probably crazy. Civil wars, scandals, improper governments, and attacks from the north was weakening Rome. Contributing to economic issues, the government had been devaluing their currency by removing significant amounts of silver from their coins in order to make more coins with less silver. Then, called the crisis in the 3rd century, nearly 30 emperors claimed rule over Rome in a period of just 50 years. This caused political instability throughout Rome. Emperors would attempt to create policy only to be assassinated and replaced by a new emperor, who would create his new policies only to be assassinated. The cycle continued to repeat. Attacks from the Goths, Franks, and Vandals from the north and skilled Persians from the east stretched the empire. This was followed by the Cyprian plague. The gods must be angry. Many Christians became targets and were persecuted. Meanwhile, citizens grew tired of the instability and lost trust in the government. The wealthy stopped paying taxes, causing an already unstable government to lose funding. No taxes led to a crumbling infrastructure. There was no funding for the military, and Roman legions fought Roman legions in an attempt to make their general the next emperor, until he would be assassinated. Great military leaders were dying off. The military was getting weaker. Rome began to hire Germanic tribes to fight at 1/10 of the cost of what a Roman soldier cost, but at 1/10 of the loyalty. Unpaid soldiers took over farms and began blocking trade. This, coupled with the weak currency, led to food shortages, and food prices soared to over 15,000%. The people had to resort to bartering to stay alive. Diocletian took charge of Rome and began making reforms and put policies in place to strengthen the crumbling empire. He divided the empire, realizing it was too large for one person to rule, and made co-emperors. Maybe he was trying to restore some thinking from old Rome, but unlike co-consuls, this would not last long. But good idea. In 312, Constantine became emperor of Rome. In 330, he moved the capital to Byzantium, in modern-day Istanbul, Turkey, and renamed it Constantinople. He enacted new administrative, financial, and military reforms to strengthen the empire. He reconstructed the government by separating military and civil authorities. To combat inflation, he introduced the solidus, a new gold coin that would become the standard for Europe and Byzantine for over 1,000 years. Constantine will also become the first emperor to convert to Christianity. The rest of Rome will eventually follow. When a king or emperor converts to another religion, his people or subjects follow. We will talk more about Constantine in the next video, the rise of the Byzantine Empire. Theodosius ruled and realized the difficulties of such a large empire. He enacted upon his death that Rome would officially be divided into two separate empires. So in 395 CE, Rome divided into the Western Roman Empire with its capital in Rome and the Eastern Roman Empire with its capital in Constantinople. Constantinople will survive and thrive for another 1,000 years, but that is another video. This video is the fall of the Western Roman Empire, which will lead into the Middle Ages. In the late 300s, a new enemy emerged to all Europeans, the Huns. The Huns were a nomadic group from Asia who traveled west looking for land. They were expert horse riders and fierce warriors. Germanic tribes all over Europe were trying to get away from the Huns, which were pushing them closer to Roman territory. One Germanic tribe, called the Visigoths, asked Rome for protection. Rome allowed the Visigoths to come into the empire as long as they promised not to turn against the empire. The Romans wound up treating the Visigoths terribly. In 378, the Visigoths attacked Rome and crushed them at the Battle of Adrianople, which is in modern-day Turkey. Rome was now weak, which enabled Germanic tribes to enter the empire and begin grabbing territory. The Angles and Saxons would move into England. The Vandals crossed into northern Africa and crossed onto the Italian peninsula and would vandalize Rome, which is where the word comes from. And you can also see the Franks would move to what is now France. They will later play an important role in the spread of Christianity across Western Europe. In 476 CE, the last Roman emperor, a teenage boy named Romulus, would be captured by a Germanic general named Odoacer, and the Western Roman Empire would come to an end.